All right, so let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Captain America, Brave New World. I haven't seen it yet. Squeedo has. Do I ever really plan to see it? Maybe in a couple years, within a decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, eventually.
If you want honesty, I'll give you honesty. I don't really care about the projects I can tell that don't have a lot of inspiration behind them. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to this generation of MCU, there are definitely some good outliers. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 being that one, you know, and I can usually tell when what's the word? I can usually tell when a trailer comes out whether or not to put faith in a film. And when I saw Brave New World trailer, I was watching it and I'm like, you know what? I like how this is framed, but I think it's being framed as it being more unique than it actually is. That was my impressions of the trailer. And overall, it just seems like a film that's going to meddle around the middle, maybe a little above average, right? That's what I'm thinking. And I don't really want to go out to the theaters for something I'm going to be like, oh, that was fine, and then move on. You know what I mean? I don't need that. I got plenty of that at the house. I know, depressing. You know? We got Captain America at home and movie. I'll stop. All right, listen.
So when you saw the trailer, what was like the general consensus of it? That it was just going to be okay?
The general consensus for watching the trailer was pretty much just me watching the trailer. The main thing I was thinking is, okay, Marvel has really been trying to boost this phase as much as possible. And when you watch the trailer the first time, it feels unique. It feels fresh. It feels new. Then I watched it a second time. Then I watched it a third time. And I realized that this is a similar plot to what we've been seeing in the average movies, but it's framed more uniquely. Instead of a basic B plot, it's more on the espionage side, and it's more interesting and breathtaking. And they're not doing the big build-up drum beats like an Infinity War or Endgame, right? Like they're trying to change the formula a little bit in terms of presentation. That's what I noticed. What I noticed from just watching the footage is that the presentation feels a bit like a deception. It just does. It feels that way for Thunderbolts too. It feels like the presentation is kind of a deception. Now, Thunderbolts may be the best movie ever made. And you know what? I hope it is. You know, I got some great actors in there. Let's hope. Do I think it's going to be very special? No, not really. And you couldn't tell that from just watching the trailer one time. It's after watching it and really thinking about the history of the MCU that it just seems a bit deceptive in terms of originality. It's what it is. You know, it's trying to pitch itself as more than it actually is. And when you watch it, you'll feel underwhelmed. That's what I think.
Yeah. My initial impressions for Brave New World when I saw the teaser was the same thing, that I liked how original it felt, how unique it was, how different it was trying to be. But I was still skeptical because, I mean, it is Marvel and it is the MCU. And at the end of the day, it could just end up being the most generic superhero movie you've ever seen. But they're framing it in a certain way.
It's coming from a massive corporation that just refuses to take any kind of risk with original IPs, which is why they go back to remakes and live action remakes and then prequels to stories we already know about, you know, like Mufasa, stuff like that, right? It's just they're not really willing to make any big sacrifices, even though they're a massive corporation that could definitely afford it. You know what I mean? Because they want the sure thing. And the sure thing is the formula. And unfortunately, Disney just doesn't understand that formula just isn't going to work yet. Which is crazy because they've seen such repeated failures over the years of just following the formula. And they're still not on that program yet. I feel like let me rephrase. I feel like they are, but I also feel like these scripts and processes were already halfway done by the time they realized. And so now they have to package it differently just so they can sell it. Oh yeah, we're really trying to be unique, guys. You know, we listened to you, just a little fucking late, but we listened. It's all right. You know, wait 4 more years. All right, we got you. You know, I feel like maybe Fantastic Four will be kind of the turning of the tide in terms of MCU.
Hopefully.
Maybe not. I'm praying that's what it is. I'm praying Fantastic Four and the X-Men stuff will be the changing of the tide, you know? Yeah. Do I think that's the case? Realistically? Probably not. I mean, they had to buy Fox because they can't make another story surrounding the Avengers. They had to buy Fox. Before we press record, I wanted to ask him what his biggest gripe with the movie is, or if it was just kind of saying me and all right. And he actually had an answer for me, which isn't normal. Usually it's just, it was all right. He's got an answer. What was your answer going to be, Sweeto?
Yeah, so the movie is just all right. I'm going to preface it with that. The movie is just, it's okay. My biggest gripe with the movie is the marketing. And so we were just talking about how the teaser frames it to be unique and you know, presents it in a different way. I'm going to say this. The presentation that you see in the trailer does continue into the actual movie. The way the movie is presented in the trailers is how it's presented on film. When you sit down to actually watch the movie and take in the story and everything, it's presented exactly the same way. The thing that kills the marketing and eventually kills the movie is Red Hulk. Red Hulk is in all the trailers. Red Hulk is on all the posters. Every single piece of marketing based on Captain America Brave New World is about Red Hulk. Because you know Red Hulk is in the movie because of the marketing and the trailers, you know where the movie's headed. It goes from being a political espionage thriller with a mystery behind it and is building up to this big thing. Now you already know what that buildup is. It's Red Hulk. Every sense of mystery is gone from the movie automatically just because you saw a poster or you saw the trailer. You know Red Hulk is in the movie, you've officially ruined the movie for yourself. Marvel has ruined and spoiled the movie for literally every single person just because they wanted to get butts and seats. Because they would say, oh, Red Hulk is in the movie. That's cool, I'll go watch it. But now you've officially ruined any kind of suspense or build-up that the actual story had.
Which is crazy
because
you think someone like Harrison Ford would have been sold enough. You know what I mean? Would have been a sell enough.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? What are we doing here? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and you know, Harrison Ford is really like a co-lead in the movie, which I am glad that they went in that direction, because I do love Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson and Captain America, but I know a lot of people were hesitant about him leading a Captain America movie all on his own. I think he does a pretty great job, but the story very much is a balancing act between him and Harrison Ford, and both of them are great. You know, Harrison Ford, he's rarely bad. He's only bad when he doesn't give a shit, like Return of the Jedi. He did not give a fuck about that movie. His performance was completely phoned in, and you can tell. But when he gives a shit, like Indiana Jones,
y'all gotta kill me. All right, that's it.
You guys gotta kill Han Solo in this one, please. Yeah. He's begging you. And then Anthony Mackie is, you know, Sam Wilson is the same character that we've seen before, but now he's no longer a side character. Now he's the main focus, and I think for the most part he does a good job of handling the story and the main character, the protagonist, you know, kind of role. He does a great job at filling that, and he also has Harrison Ford to back him up in that sense. But again, the entire movie is pretty much brought down because you already know where it's going. I've seen a lot of people say that Brave New World feels like an official sequel to The Incredible Hulk, just with Captain America. It is 100% that. A lot of story threads that were left in The Incredible Hulk that Marvel has never touched again, Brave New World picks up on that and just rolls with it. And so there's a lot of threads that we haven't seen in the MCU in a long time that are getting picked up now in this story. And I just think, why not just make this a Hulk movie? At this point, I get it. You have the political side of it, and that's how Captain America is essentially involved. But you could have just made this a Hulk movie. And I imagine if they would have made this movie maybe 10 years ago, and you have like Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner maybe being the lead in the film, that would have made things a little more interesting, because you're adding onto the Hulk lore in the MCU, but now you're doing it under the guise of a Captain America movie, and it just feels kind of weird. There's a lot of things in this movie that feel weird. Like the movie, so it's been told that the movie underwent a lot of extensive reshoots, and I feel like you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea what the original version of this movie looked like. You can tell it's a mishmash of a lot of ideas that they had, just streamlined into the most basic version for mass audiences. It's the best way I could put it.
Would you say the movie tries to play it safe?
Definitely. It definitely plays it safe for the entire thing.
You see,
again,
like,
aside from some...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, aside from some good performances, Giancarlo Esposito is done dirty You can tell his character was added in reshoots, that he was not originally meant to be there.
God damn it.
They made that very obvious. It's just this movie has potential, and there's a foundation for a great movie in here, but ultimately it's just executed in the most nothing way, where it's just kind of like you're watching it just to watch it, but you're not watching it like, oh man, this shit is badass. You're watching it like, okay, I'm watching a movie. Like, I was watching the entire thing. I didn't feel like the movie dragged. I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't distracted. I was watching it, but it didn't feel like I was watching this amazing movie. It just felt like I was watching a movie.
And, you know, man, that just sucks, because what's crazy to me, right, is pretty much everything that you've said here, you've said to me in the past when we were talking about the trailer. Literally every single fucking thing. The reshoots are a problem. Giancarlo Esposito's obviously was added in reshoots. It really obvious. It looks like they're going to try to play it safe. The addition of Red Hulk is a mistake, you know, at least in the trailers, right? Like, it's just all this stuff. And, you know, man, it sucks to have all your disappointments and your potential fears for a movie be proven right. Because let me tell you something, okay? I don't like being a hater for Marvel. I don't like being a blind hater or a follower of the discontent for anything, whether it's a corporation or an individual. I don't like doing that. All right? Especially Marvel. I want them to succeed. I want them to continue making good movies that we enjoy. But guys, we can't settle for mediocrity. We just can't. Just because it's an okay movie doesn't mean that we should fire back with, oh my God, this was actually okay. Keep doing this. It's like, no. If it's mid, if it's slightly above average, we want better. You know why? Because we know that Marvel Studios is capable of it. You know? I mean, you got James Gunn heading the new DCEU. And just based off of that Superman teaser trailer that literally just popped up on screen now.
Yeah, the timing.
Just off that teaser trailer alone, that's all I need to know, that he's going to take this in a new and interesting direction. You know? Something unique, something different, something wholesome that comes from one creative vision, not a million to fit a marketing campaign. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I desperately want the MCU to continue to prosper and to make good cinema, because the MCU is my childhood, along with a lot of other things, but that's a big part of it. I grew up watching the Marvel movies, and I don't want them to fall apart. All right? So I'm coming from a place of love when I say this, I'm coming from a place of love. Marvel Studios, Disney, take some fucking risk. Stop micromanaging everything and making it marketable, and actually take some risk with original and fresh perspectives on the MCU. It is the only way to continue this franchise without just tanking your stock in the process. Because these movies that you're producing now, they're not even safe bets anymore. You guys are losing out on a lot of money every release because you refuse to take risk. It sucks that this conversation you and me are having are going to fall on deaf ears. They'll never change. They're doing what they believe is right for Disney and what makes the most money. You know? If one thing I can give a movie like Eternals is that it tried to be unique, and all it needed was some extra spit shine. You know what I mean? It needed not to feel rushed. You know what I mean? Because it definitely felt rushed. It needed some more time. It needed a lot more time in the oven. But one thing I can say about Eternals is that it's an original take on the MCU. All right, that whole love, drama, romance thing, how things were actually taken seriously. It's not poetic cinema, but it's different. It's trying to be different, a different flavor, a different stroke for different folks. We need more of that, not just the samey, wishy-washy bullshit, you know?
Yeah. I will say, you know, to give the movie a positive, you can tell that the people working on Brave New World wanted to do something different. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was, you know, maybe Disney holding them down and maybe making them go in a specific direction, all the extensive reshoots. I don't know what the original story was going to be. versus what we got, but you can tell that they wanted to do something unique and wanted to do something different that still felt within the realm of the MCU. I'll also say Brave New World steals a lot from Captain America the Winter Soldier, which I rewatched the other day. They do steal a lot from the Winter Soldier.
Which, I mean, it's a sequel, so definitely some theft is warranted, you know?
Of course, yeah.
Just please, for the love of God, don't make it feel like a ripoff. Make it feel like an homage, please and thank you. I mean, that movie's old enough to make it feel like an homage now. It's been over like a decade, you know?
Which is crazy to think about.
Oh, we're old.
But yeah, no, Brave New World, you can tell they wanted to do something different, but they're being held back. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Marvel, Disney telling the directors and creators what to do, or what the original vision was going to be. Maybe something changed, and it just seems like, you know, Brave New World is trying to do this thing, but there's a barrier above them that they can't quite break through.
Well, all we know is it's leading to the same thing: mediocrity. So whatever it is, guys, stop fucking doing it. All right, either let your directors and your team actually have their fun. You know what I think a lot of it is, and this is the main thing, is the fact that all this stuff is on an assembly line. You guys have this shit being rushed like it's as if the next release means whether or not your company's gonna survive. You know what I mean? You guys operate like the PS2 generation of gaming companies. You know what I mean? Stop.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
Rockstar in the 2000s.
You know? Just stop. For the love of God, let these fucking movies cook. But you see, the Rockstar in the 2000s was making classics. That's the difference.
They were.
These guys are making mediocre shit. All right? These guys are making stuff that's above average that you can see has some heart. It's got some originality to it, but then had to be subbed in for the quick formula, for the Happy Meal instead of the fucking quarter pounder. You know what I mean? Fuck.
I have a point to add on to what you've said about the assembly line and this is coming from a DC fan, someone who's really excited for Superman, someone who loves James Gunn. I hope Superman does really well. And I mean, like, break $1 billion well. Like, I hope this movie exceeds any and all expectations that anyone has of it.
Real.
Because I think if it is as good as they can make it out to be, Marvel needs that wake-up call. They need that wake-up call that we have real competition. Because right now, the Marvel is just coasting by, doing whatever they want because they have no competition. And if James Gunn can take DC in a direction to where they can grow bigger than the Marvel brand ever could, and right now James Gunn has the policy of we are not greenlighting movies until a script is ready and done and good, that it's Marvel has to change their whole workflow.
Yeah.
If that workflow works for DC, which, I mean, it should if they're taking their time with everything, Marvel needs to follow suit. I don't care what it is. It needs to follow suit. Avengers Doomsday comes out in a year.
No.
And they haven't started filming yet. They have not started filming yet.
I didn't know that. Are you serious? A year?
Yep.
We're nowhere near that.
We have Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, and then Avengers.
Oh, it's a mess.
Yep.
That's a mess. I wonder how much they're paying RDJ.
Too much.
Probably like a third of the stock.
The report came out that he was making tens of millions of dollars off of Avengers Doomsday.
Oh, man.
I think it was like 80 mil or something. I could be wrong.
Ooh, Jesus.
Yeah, they're paying him. I got to look into that. I don't know the exact number. Someone can probably correct me in the comments, like that. But it was a huge chunk of money, and
probably more than Endgame, which was 50 and like a percentage of their earnings.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, right now all Avengers is riding on is Fantastic Four, because we know Doctor Doom's going to be the villain in Doomsday, and he's a Fantastic Four villain. So I assume we're going to get something in the end credits of Fantastic Four that'll lead into Doomsday, and then that's probably it. Because Thunderbolts is definitely not leading to Avengers. I mean, have you seen the trailers for that?
No!
That shit is not building up to anything. That's its own movie.
So what the fuck is going to build up to it? Is that the start? What are we doing? Yeah. You know? I'm sorry. That's such a headache. Guys, why are we doing this? Why are we rushing things so heavily? Why are you guys on the gas pedal nonstop when you guys have no gasoline? You know what I mean? Y'all have no fuel, and you continue to operate this vehicle as if it's not going to fucking tear down in 5 years. Like, what are you doing? Get the oil change, you know what I mean? Tune up the tires and suspension, you know what I mean? Take care of this baby. This baby has carried you for over a decade, and you have taken care of it for over a decade. Now, all of a sudden, y'all hit a few speed bumps, and you don't care about the condition of your vehicle anymore? What's going on, y'all? What's going on, y'all? Metaphors. All right.
Yeah, Marvel needs Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four to work.
Goddamn
Especially
right.
Fantastic Four. I think everything is riding on Fantastic Four right now.
Everything is riding on Fantastic Four.
If Fantastic Four is not good, I don't know what they're going to do with Avengers, but there's a lot riding on Fantastic Four. I'm looking forward to Thunderbolts, and the reason why is because it looks like it's not setting anything up, and it looks like it's just a fun movie that Marvel decided to put together. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It looks different. Looks fun. I'm interested in it. You know, the if anything, the action's going to be good. I know that for sure.
Right.
But yeah, I'll be there day one for Thunderbolts. I'll be there day one for Fantastic Four.
It works at a theater.
If these movies are bad, I'll call them out for it.
Yeah.
If the movies are bad, I'll call them out for it. If they're good, I'll call them out for that too.
I don't think it's going to be bad. And I feel like a big part of the fact that Thunderbolts is actually going to be decent is because of the actors. You got Florence Pugh and what's the other guy's name?
David Harbour.
He's great.
Bucky's in the movie.
You got Sebastian Stan. You know, like you got great actors in there. You know what I mean? You got some great. Let me tell you something about the current day MCU. May not be the best scripts in the world. Cinematography, next level. It really is. Like they got some next level cinematography. So I'm gonna definitely enjoy that. I'm gonna enjoy good performances, and I'm gonna enjoy some great action. So as far as I'm concerned, that's like 3 out of 5 components, and they're already covered. You know what I mean? So we'll see how things continue in terms of tone, and if comedy is actually hits where it needs to go, and if you guys can actually instill any kind of emotional resonance in the film. I like to think you can because you guys have good actors. So we'll see what we can do. But as far as I'm concerned, I believe Thunderbolts will be good in terms of it'll be fun. I could see myself rewatching it in a year. But it's not exactly something you build a franchise on, you know? So we'll see if Fantastic Four is the one that starts that. And I hope it is. Fantastic Four needs to be their Guardians of the Galaxy type ace in the hole. You know what I mean? Like just completely unique. Everyone loves it and can identify with it. And como se dice, and you could just build off of there. You know, like this is the one unique franchise that we can build off of now, right? Like I need that in my life.
Yeah.
Because you can't depend on Spider-Man. You cannot depend on Spider-Man. With how Sony continues to cook, you cannot depend on Spider-Man right now. You just can't. You know?
Yeah. And I wonder if it was done intentionally to put all this pressure on Fantastic Four, because not only do you have the pressure of making a good Fantastic Four after the last one, we're just not even going to talk about that one because everyone knows how that one went. And then you have also the pressure of setting up Avengers and putting the MCU back on the right track. I can't imagine Marvel did that on purpose with Fantastic Four, but there is a lot riding on that movie, and it has to be good. There's virtually no other way it can go. It has to be good, and if it's not, then I think Marvel needs to delay Avengers. I think there's no other way.
I think what you guys do is... If I'm talking from strictly not just business, let me take the fan perspective out of it because I want to see more movies, right? But let's just take the fan perspective out of it for a minute. Y'all need to make a hasty retreat, all right? And y'all need to take at least a few years to really come up with a plan and to really film these things out. And the script, I need y'all to make scripts for 10 movies, make them done, finalized with no time limits, and then you can think about building a franchise. You know what I mean? Like, let's plan it out. What was up with Pixar and them? You know what I mean? They already had a bunch of original ideas that they built off of when they started. And then after they got off the original ideas, their movies went from legendary to, it's good. You know what I mean? Like, guys, we need another dream team. We need another dream generation. And the only way to conjure that kind of thing up is not by happenstance or improvisation. Damn it. Y'all got a plan because you already made a golden age through improvisation, and lightning does not strike twice in that motherfucking bottle. Okay. You need to do it a different way. And the way you do it is through careful planning and injecting yourself into the hero scene once you guys have a solid plan for the future. Because all I know is after all the reshoots, after all the redoing and remarketing and re of fucking everything that's currently active, what I know is that you guys don't have a plan. And you fucking need one to run a multi-billion-dollar movie franchise, okay?
And the thing is, they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the whole thing with Kang and Jonathan Majors.
Real.
They should have just recasted Kang, and you would have had no issues going into Avengers.
You know, it's like, yeah, I understand that. Oh, but, you know, it would have been confusing for audiences. But let me tell you something. What's better? Confusing audiences for half a movie or throwing away an entire plan for a franchise? You know, like, what are we doing here?
The thing is, it wouldn't even be confusing. He's a multiverse villain. Just say, oh, it's a different universe version. Okay.
That's it. And then go from there.
Simple as that.
You know, man, I'm not going to speak to Jonathan Majors' character. I saw the footage. I saw whatever. Let's just not talk about it. I don't know. I don't give a shit. All right? We're not here to talk about that. Let's just talk about his acting prowess for a second. That guy was the perfect choice for that character. Oh, my God. He's ridiculously good. And so now you got to replace him? That's a hard choice. But there are a few fucking actors out there that are willing to make their goddamn payday. Even if you have to dial back Kang's presence, at least go with the original idea. You know? Just, it's better than this, where you just throw everything around and hope for the best. What are we doing, guys? Damn it.
Yeah.
I just hope that they reveal a solid idea come Fantastic Four or Avengers, where they reveal that, oh, we have had a plan for a while now, and now we're able to enact it. These were just the filler movies. I hope that's what it was. I hope that these movies are just movies that they have to release because they already shot it, you know, whatever, right? Just to make some extra cash. Okay, I hope we're just in that transitionary period. But, brother, it's hard to think that way. It really is, because we have just been getting miss after miss after miss. It's a fucking headache. Even with a plan, y'all have been missing bad.
Yeah,
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. What are we doing? What is going on? After Loki? After Loki! You motherfuckers pulled Ant-Man out your ass and said, yeah, he can come back here. Oh, Ant-Man should beat him. What are we doing, guys? Seriously?
Yeah, the multiverse saga has been a series of ups and downs. We've gotten some of the worst that the MCU has put out, and also some of the best. Because we got Loki and Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Shang-Chi, bro.
And Shang-Chi. But then you mix that in with the Marvels and Agatha all along.
Eternals was alright.
She-Hulk.
And She-Hulk, and just all this,
that's the thing is, I think most of the multiverse saga has been okay.
And we don't want that. All right?
Yeah.
I'm not asking for Infinity War every release. That's impossible. It can't happen. And I think
Marvel's trying.
They've aspired to do that for some reason. It doesn't make sense. You know? You think after, like, for example, you think the same guys that planned Spider-Man Far From Home to be released after Endgame would have thought that, hey, it's okay if we dial it back a bit. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, because that's exactly what the fuck you did, and it worked. You know what I mean? What are we doing?
Yeah, and the thing is, Far From Home is also like...
The only reason why Ant-Man has a fucking trilogy is because of that. But then the third one came out, and all of a sudden it's Avengers level. Whoa, whiplash, all right? Jesus.
Yeah. I've always said that sequels, you know, they always try to make sequels bigger and better. Sequels don't always have to go bigger.
Yeah.
You can try to make them better. They don't got to be bigger. You can dial it back, make it smaller scale, make it more personal, and it can be better. I'm excited for Daredevil, which you're playing the trailer for.
Damn straight. Or you could just be completely different. Just do something unique. That idea that you said, where you dial it back and make it more personable, that's exactly how you should be doing sequels. Let me tell you something about my favorite aspect of any kind of story, and that's character work. When a movie takes its time to write its subtext out, that's when I know that these writers, this production company, everyone involved is invested in the characters. And when you really love your characters, you love what you do. And it makes it more wholesome for me to watch when you actually care about your characters and they're not just a means to an end. All right? So if you really want to make these heroes, to build them up into something that we can admire and adore and buy merch of, then you need to make them more personable, and you need to focus on your character work. That is the strongest piece of advice I think I could ever give, not only any writer ever, but especially the MCU, is focus on your character work. If your characters are one note, boring, then no one will give a shit. All right? Characters can serve as a vessel for the viewer. Damn it. You think you guys would know this, you know?
Yeah.
God, meanwhile, we're talking to fucking rocks as main characters. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? Just stop.
Yeah, I do think the MCU really has a character problem, especially with their newer movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I always look to Deadpool and Wolverine as an example of that. I like Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine was a good movie, but I do think it's a movie where the surprises and the cameos overshadowed the character work.
Right.
In hindsight, when you're watching the movie, you're invested.
Right.
But when you look back on it, what do you remember? Human Torch. Chris Evans was in the movie.
Funny things. Oh my God.
Remember Blade? Oh my God.
Meanwhile, you cannot say that for Deadpool 1 or 2. Deadpool 1 and 2. 1 was a love story, right? And then 2 was all about family. You know what I mean? And yeah, those are the core. Those are the core of those films. And then all of that extra stuff is exactly that. Extra icing on the cake. Not filler, icing on the cake. Deadpool and Wolverine said, let's make a cake made of icing. You know? We love icing, absolutely, but you need cake under the icing. Otherwise, it ain't a fucking cake. What are we doing? That metaphor made sense. Yeah, I think so. It made sense.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, look at a movie like Black Panther Wakanda Forever, where the entirety of that movie is character work. The entire thing from start to finish.
No, you gotta hit the pose. You gotta hit the pose. All right, speak.
Every single aspect of Black Panther Wakanda Forever is character work. From start to finish. It's about grief. It's about loss. And it's about Shuri becoming the next Black Panther, even though she doesn't want to be. It's about the country of Wakanda and how they're dealing with, you know, a war while also dealing with a tragedy. And it's something you don't see Marvel do ever. Because at the end of the day, Wakanda Forever is a war film. It's a political war film. It's fictional Wakandan politics, but it is a political war film. And Marvel doesn't really do that anymore. It feels like what Marvel does 90% of the time is they try to make superhero movies the genre. It's like, oh, it's a superhero movie. That is the genre of the movie. It is a superhero movie.
That's dumb.
When that's not at all the case. It should be the other way around. You can make a horror superhero movie like Brightburn, which I haven't seen, but I've heard it's just okay. You can make comedic horror, or I was going to say comedic horror movie. You can make a comedic superhero movie. You can cover all of these different kinds of genres with these characters because the lore and the history is so rich and have already covered so many different aspects of fiction that you can materialize those into movies. And it just seems like Marvel wants to make superheroes the genre rather than making genre films about superheroes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. We all know what the superhero genre entails. Good guy versus the big bad. Yeah, it's always that, right? But if you really dwell on the genre of a film that happens to have superheroes within it, it gives you a lot more freedom. You understand? I mean, you look at a movie like Infinity War, it's like, yeah, that's a superhero movie, but it came out with such a mind-blowing ending that was literally killing off half of the fucking cast. That shows me that these are writers that actually care about telling a story that isn't just your basic, oh, we're gonna make the audience leave happy. You know, the audience is gonna get their money's worth. It's like, no, they're telling a story. They're telling a story, and that kind of story where the bad guy wins has been told across all kinds of different genres, all kinds of different movies. I feel like this is a really odd comparison to draw, but the first thing I thought of was The Departed. Where at the end of the day, yeah, the good guys, what's the word? The good, at the end of the day, the fucking bad guys won. Really. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, Matt Damon was shot at the end, whatever, fuck. But the bad guys fucking won at the end of the day. And eventually, everyone lost at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And with Endgame, when it led into that story, even though the good guys won at the end and everyone's back, brother, things got depressing. Tony died. Steve Rogers just wanted to fucking leave and left the world as it was. And yeah, he had a good life, whatever. And now everyone's so scarred and fucked up from that. You know, it's just, for me, that kind of, what's the word? That kind of originality in a script is something that we need more of, not less of. We need unique takes. We need unique perspectives. And that's it. That's all we need. We need people with visions about those characters. And we need people who are big fans of the characters they're writing about already. You know what I mean? They've already read the comics. And they've been aspiring, waiting, dreaming, hoping they could make a script surrounding this character. Those movies always come out better. You know why? Because the director, writer, whoever actually care about the fucking movie. It's not just a job for them. It's a passion project. You know?
Yeah, that's really important because, I mean, when I think of a director being a fan of the character they're making a movie about, I think of Sam Raimi and his Spider-Man trilogy. Because he loves Spider-Man. And when you think of a movie like Spider-Man 2, you can see that he loves Spider-Man because you're not focused on all the action and all the cool stuff, because while that stuff is in the movie and while that stuff is really cool, you can see that he cares about Peter Parker, who is the man behind Spider-Man, essentially. You can tell Sam Raimi gives a shit about telling that story, about who's under the mask, just as much as giving the fans a cool fight scene between Doc Ock and Spider-Man. And I think that's really important, to have filmmakers that care. And I was talking about this with a coworker of mine. He brought it up, actually. Marvel should start looking towards filmmakers that are experienced as well.
Yeah.
Because you look at a lot of the people working on Marvel movies now, they've come from indie projects, maybe have a few features under their belt, and then they work on a Marvel movie.
So they can be morphed and formed into what Marvel want. They take that talent and they take that talent and they mold that director exactly how they want them to be molded to fit a formula. It's what it is. You know, it's like those new guys, those inexperienced guys that see this as their big break, they're a lot less likely to say no to a production studio. You know what I mean? And they have a lot of talent, and you know that they'll see that project through, and they're going to work their ass off. Oh, they're giving the little guy a chance. But really, there's a flip side to that coin. And that they want to mold that new director who's a lot less likely to say no and is a lot more inexperienced to their liking. You don't get that when you hire Sam Raimi, a Scorsese, a Tarantino, whatever the fuck. You don't get that from experienced directors because they already got their movies. They already got their legacy, and they already got their own ideas and scripts that they're working on. If you look into experienced directors, you're going to get their flavor, not what the corporation wants. And that's why they'll never do it. And if they do it, like with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, let me tell you, that is a fucking flash in the pan. All right? That is a flash in the pan. Will it happen again? I really hope so. I doubt it. I'm being honest. I doubt it. I don't think they're going to take those kinds of risks. Because that's what it is. It's a fucking risk.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, some people shit on Multiverse of Madness. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I liked it.
You can see Sam Raimi's identity in there.
Damn straight.
You can
need
tell
more
that Marvel,
originality. Fuck, you know? Go ahead.
You can tell Marvel and Disney wanted him to go in a certain direction, but at the end of the day, you can't really hold Sam Raimi back.
Goddamn right.
I am so positive that Sam Raimi was like, look, for the final battle, we're not just going to have Doctor Strange go in there and fuck shit up. It's got to be a zombie Doctor Strange. Yes. And Marvel was like, what the fuck? Why? And he's just like, trust me, it's going to be cool.
Well, we're never doing that again.
He's going to have a cape full of demons. It's going to be great.
Yeah, right. And so now, after all that fuck shit, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that again. That's all it is. You know? Yeah. Unfortunately, the big corporation doesn't have the balls to actually let their films be directed by people who are experienced. That being said, I don't mind that they're taking young people in and new people, absolutely. But I can tell the deception in there, all right? I can tell the flip side to the coin, damn it, all right? Why do you think a lot of these movies feel samey? They're all made by different people. Why do they feel samey? Because the production studio is the same. That's the common denominator. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think brand synergy is what was the beginning of the end for Marvel. It was eventually going to go down to this point where it just all became generic and a big blur. With the Infinity Saga, I can name every movie in the Infinity Saga. Multiverse Saga, shit. There's shows I forgot, shows I didn't watch, movies I didn't watch. There's movies I forgot existed.
Cannot say that about Infinity Saga. Just can't. I saw it all. I watched it all. I enjoyed it all, even the bad ones. I enjoyed them all. Yep. You know?
And the thing is, the Infinity Saga did have that problem with brand synergy, but it wasn't a huge issue because they were still able to put out good quality movies.
Right, and that was more on the back half of its lifespan with Ragnarok. Once Ragnarok came around, that's when it really started pushing in that direction. But it was almost done by then, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would even say Phase 2 suffered from a little bit of synergy because you had, like, Ant-Man. That was just kind of generic and whatever. And you also had, like, Thor: The Dark World, which didn't really have any identity. I mean, who remembers that movie?
Yeah, I don't think anyone does.
Not me.
I hear you.
And but you know, you did have outliers like Iron Man 3, which was directed by Shane Black, and you can tell that movie was directed by Shane Black. His identity is all over the movie. James Gunn with Guardians of the Galaxy. You had Joss Whedon with Avengers: Age of Ultron. But then you look at Phase 1. And Phase 1, that's where all the movies were different. You had Jon Favreau on Iron Man 1 and 2. You can tell those are Jon Favreau movies. They have a punk rock edge to them. It is Jon Favreau through and through. Joe Johnston worked on Captain America: The First Avenger. It falls in line with all of his other previous work. It's a Joe Johnston movie. Who did Incredible Hulk? I don't remember. But that movie's unique.
It's terrible.
It's unique to the point where...
It's unique.
Yeah, it's terrible, but it's unique.
It's got Edward Norton in it.
Yeah. In fact, that movie is so unique, Marvel has never touched it again.
That's it.
For good reason.
That's it. That's the spoiled egg right there. You don't want to touch that shit.
And and you got Thor 1, which Thor 1 isn't great, but it's unique. It has an identity to it.
And that's why it felt so fucking cool and unique and crazy that there was an actual team up of these franchises because they're all so fucking different, you know? Like Iron Man 1 leans heavily on Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr.'s charisma. And you also have the rich playboy billionaire part, you know, that kind of thing. That's a very different kind of movie to a Captain America: The First Avenger. You know what I mean? That it's just, it goes back to the 40s, I think that's the decade, or a little sooner, a little later, something like that.
The 40s, World War II.
It goes back to the 40s, World War II era, and then, como se dice, and it goes on about old-timey love story, about the little guy, what's the word, with a lot of heart, all of a sudden has this mutation which he can fight the big battles. He starts off as this mascot, not even a soldier. Like, it's a very different storyline. He doesn't become
Captain America until like an hour in.
Yeah. It's a very... Meanwhile, Iron Man is Iron Man from minute one. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Very different. You know what I mean? And then you have Thor, which leads into the Asgardian, as the Asgardian, like the Norse mythology, you know, thing, and more fantasy, more fantastical, a lot less in the terms of relatability, you know, which kind of hurt the movie, but was still having its own identity. You know, and then you have the Incredible Hulk, which was fucking terrible, but it was very different in the way that it was this, in the way that this guy was always running. He was always on the move. He was always trying to hide. He was on the run constantly, and it's a very different dynamic. You know what I mean? Once again, different, unique, and then eventually got Iron Man 2, which was just a Robert Downey Jr. again, more Iron Man. And then it was the Avengers, all these different flavors mixing into one and actually being extremely well done. Talk about lightning in a bottle, guys, you know?
Yeah.
We will never get that level of originality and uniqueness in storytelling from the MCU ever again. I'm convinced. If they find a way to do it to that degree, hats off, guys. But I doubt it.
And I think it's been so long that a lot of people don't give Avengers 1 the credit that it deserves. Joss Whedon's a piece of shit. I'm just going to say that. I think we can all agree on that. We don't condone Joss Whedon here, but you can't deny that with Avengers 1...
Hold on, pause. I'm sorry, pause. Why do we hate Joss Whedon?
Justice League 2017. And a lot of toxic behind the scenes behavior. I'll put it that way.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm with you, Holmes. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but we can't deny the talent that he had in making Avengers 1 and how he perfectly blended the tones of every movie that came before and still made something unique and whole, and just it's the perfect blend of all of the Phase 1 movies. Put them together, that's Avengers. Like, every tone was hit, every character arc was continued, not a single thing left untouched, and it was amazing the way they pulled it off.
And you could argue that some of their personalities were kind of boiled down, maybe, whatever, but it's the perfect blend. Maybe it needed to be boiled down a little bit. All right, it was the perfect blend, and I don't think anybody could have pulled it off any better. I'm sorry, the Avengers is literally the perfect version of that story. I can't think of a better one, you know?
Yeah. The only criticism I have of Joss Whedon in Avengers 1 is that he kind of shoots things like a TV show. Yeah. Besides that, it's all really good. Like, that's just a nitpick at the end of the day.
It's very apparent when you're watching a 4K version of it. It's like, yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, you can see it through and through. It's like, oh yeah, this looks like a TV show. But and I think after Avengers, Marvel was like, well, we need that brand synergy, because when we make these team ups and all these characters come together, it has to make sense for them to be blended. Yeah. What made Avengers 1 special is that it took all these different movies and characters and put them together into one story. Now when you have everything feel samey and you get to those team ups, it feels less special.
They're a lot less special, right? I agree with that. That's why big moments with Infinity War, where they're all charging together, Endgame, were so fucking poignant, because a lot of especially the OG characters were also very unique from the start. Now that you've gotten rid of so many of the OG characters and we're left with guys that are either new, kind of halfway developed, have been with us forever, and have kind of just been mid-level, it's really hard for any kind of audience to upgrade these guys to top tier when they can't meet the original's expectations, because our image of top tier is Captain America, Iron Man, all these guys. And so when you introduce new actors into the field, taking the identity of the previous guy, like Captain America, Brave New World, we can't put Anthony Mackie in the same place as Chris Evans. And that's not Mackie's fault. All right? Mackie's great at what he does. But we can't put him in the same bubble as Chris Evans, Captain America. You know why? Because it's impossible. It can't happen. I mean, I'm gonna just talk about that really quick. Do we really need to call him Captain America? If it was just Falcon, or maybe they try to assume something else. If he wasn't marketed as the guy trying to take up his mantle, even though he's always even in the trailer, he was saying, I'm not Captain America. But then they call him Captain America on the fucking title card. Like, what are we doing, guys? God, just stop calling him Captain America. He's not him. So he doesn't have to fight that level of expectation, because that's always going to hang over him. Just don't call him Captain America. What are you guys doing? Because I like Mackie. I think he's awesome. You know what I mean? I've seen him in interviews. I've seen him in previous movies, and he's fighting such a massive uphill battle that he will never win, because you guys are throwing the title of Captain America on him. It's impossible. And it's the same thing with a lot of these other mid-card guys that were there for so long, but were always middle of the road. They're never gonna take those top spots because you're constantly comparing them to the originals instead of just making them unique. Damn it. You know what I mean? I want these guys to be successful. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes into the conversation of legacy characters as a whole. And it's been a debate among the internet for years now about whether Miles Morales should be called Spider-Man or have his own unique identity as a superhero. Because Marvel does that a lot. There was a point in time where the Avengers in the comics were all new characters, but they had the mantles of those who came before. Like, you had Jane Foster as Thor instead of Thor as Thor. And you had Sam Wilson, Captain America, instead of Steve Rogers. Miles Morales, Spider-Man. Ironheart instead of Iron Man. And so I always felt like when Marvel did that, I like the idea of legacy characters because it just makes sense. You want that that symbol, that mantle to continue down, because at the end of the day, it is meant to be bigger than the person themselves. But I just think that with the whole Sam Wilson Captain America thing, I think the people that are more against the idea of Sam Wilson being called Captain America are the ones that didn't really engage with the show. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier does a great job of selling you on Sam Wilson being the next Captain America. Whereas if you skip the show and you just kind of go into the movie, it doesn't feel like he earned that right to be called Captain America. It just kind of feels like he has the shield, he wears the red, white, and blue, he's Captain America. Whereas in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right off the bat, first episode, first 10 minutes, you know, at the end of Avengers Endgame, Steve Rogers gives Sam the shield. 5 minutes into the new show, I'm not Captain America. He gives up the shield. And the entire point of the show is him refusing to be Captain America, but he ends up taking on the mantle and the responsibility of a name like that because he has to, because the symbol of Captain America needs to be there, because if he doesn't take up that mantle, someone else will. It will be someone else government appointed, someone worse. And that's how we had John Walker as US agent, who ended up killing somebody with the shield. And that shot is peak, by the way, when he's holding the shield and there's blood all over it. It looks cool. But it's just, there's great cinematography in that show. But I do kind of see what you mean in that, you know, maybe call him something unique because he is bearing the weight of Captain America. But that's also kind of the point of him being called Captain America, is he needs to carry that weight. And in the movie, you know, he even has doubts that, you know, I'm just a guy. I don't have the super soldier serum. I can't do what Steve did with the symbol of Captain America. He questions that a lot in the movie. And of course, in the show, that's what the whole show is about. And so I think as someone who has seen Sam Wilson's journey from Winter Soldier all the way up to now in Captain America Brave New World, I think he has really earned that title. But I do see where you're coming from in that he's bearing a lot of weight in that he's going to be compared to the original. And even within the movie and within the show, they talk about that. You know, people tell him, you're not Steve Rogers, you're not Captain America. And he has to constantly prove that he can carry that weight, because at the end of the day, he's just a guy trying to do the right thing. And this is a line from Captain America Brave New World, but it stuck with me because I loved it. And it says, Steve Rogers gave people something to, what was it? Steve Rogers gave people something to look up to. Sam Wilson gives people something to aspire to be. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't have the serum. He's a guy with a wingsuit. No powers, no nothing. Steve Rogers had powers. Super Soldier Serum is kind of extra to call it powers, but at the end of the day, he had powers. Right. He was more than human. Sam Wilson doesn't have that. He has technology and gadgets and his wit, and that's what he has to work with.
And I'm glad they don't give him the serum. That's smart.
Yeah, they do acknowledge that in the movie. Specifically when he's fighting Red Hulk, he says, "I should have taken that serum." It's a good line, but it's also cool to see just a normal guy fighting a Hulk, because you know you put Hulk and you put Falcon next to each other, who's gonna win? Obviously, he's gonna go to Hulk. So right. you see in the movie you see Sam dealing a lot with that of just being a guy and being in these larger than life scenarios. And so I think he's earned the role of Captain America. I think Anthony Mackie's done a great job.
Oh, but that's not debatable.
Yeah. I do see where you're coming from in that he's carrying a lot of weight, a lot of responsibility. If there are people out there that do not think he has earned the right to be called Captain America, I implore you to go on Disney Plus and watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was hesitant.
Hold on. Actually watch it, not just listen to commentators talking about it. Actually watch it.
I was hesitant on Sam being the next Captain America because honestly, I'm not a huge fan of legacy characters. Like for me, it's like the character is that character. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier had the difficult job of basically reasoning with a lot of people and saying, this is why he is the new Captain America. And they sold me on it. As soon as that show is over, I'm like, I can't wait for his Captain America movie. And then the trailer came out and all my hopes and dreams were shattered. But the movie's all right.
Right.
And you know, Sam Wilson's, he's a good Captain America. Of all the things I don't like about Captain America Brave New World, Sam as Captain America is not one of them. I think Anthony Mackie does a fantastic job. And this is Captain America through and through. had to put that out there.
Yeah. And you know what, man? You make your point very eloquently. Thank you, Shwedo. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
I will add. I won't disagree with you. I will add something to that. I feel like when we talk about legacy characters in particular, I feel like someone like Miles Morales, that conversation is very different. And what I mean by that is Miles Morales is infinitely more different than Peter Parker. The only way that they're kind of together is characteristics that we see, nods towards Peter Parker and how good he is and how genuine he is, and how he would be selfless and sacrifice himself for others, and how he's dedicated to the life of Spider-Man. You see that through Miles Morales, those same aspirations, those same beliefs, but they come from wildly different backgrounds, and they also conduct themselves very differently, right? With the suit on and with the suit off, very differently. Anthony Mackie is very different. Falcon is very different from Steve Rogers with the suit off. All right, and I feel that. I feel that very much so in the way he talks, the way he speaks. But I feel like one of the characteristics that's very strong and kind of making them feel kind of samey is that military attitude, that military lifestyle, the way that they're very straight and they're very disciplined. That's something that they both share intrinsically to the T. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Meanwhile, Peter Parker comes from like lower end New York, right? But he's not exactly, his culture doesn't line up with Miles at all. Miles has got the Hispanic and the black culture, while Peter Parker has the kind of white and as the girlfriend who's in the drama club, that kind of thing, right? It's very different. And those stories are very different from Peter Parker's perspective. But then when they put the suits on, they kind of are a lot more the same, as in they have the same aspirations. But even then, when you look at Miles Morales' story in the two animated films, they feel a lot more personal because they're finding out that members of their family is big villains and whatnot. You even felt that in the Sam Raimi Peter Parker films, but those were kind of teachers, whatnot, guys that were a lot less related to Peter, So I feel like their differences are just way, way more diverse, and there's a lot more differences between the characters. So when we say legacy character and Miles Morales picks up the mantle of Spider-Man, it still feels very different enough to be like, he's his own character. He's not better or worse. But when you look over at Anthony Mackie trying to be the Captain America, there's not enough distinct differences to convince to take away that shroud that is Steve Rogers. I think that's my argument. Do I think that they will build up to that? Absolutely. And I think that this is perspective of somebody who hasn't watched the show, so maybe that's what they established there. But as far as I'm concerned, just looking at it from probably the perspective that most people are looking at it, there's not enough there for me to not think of Steve Rogers when I look at Anthony Mackie. You know what I mean? It's just what it is, Go ahead.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I do totally get that, in that they are similar. And I also think that's what makes Sam the perfect candidate to be the next Captain America.
Right.
A few days ago, after I watched Brave New World, I rewatched Captain America the Winter Soldier. And as we know, that's the movie that introduces Falcon into the MCU for the first time. And the important thing with Captain America, and a character like Captain America, because he's also very similar to Superman in some ways, is that, I think I've talked about this on the pod before, but it's just a storytelling thing. You have dynamic characters and you have static characters. Dynamic characters are characters with a full arc. They change from who they are at the beginning of the story to who they are at the end, are two different people. They learned their lesson, like in Iron Man. Iron Man was a piece of shit arms dealer in the first Iron Man, and then you look at him in Endgame, he's sacrificing himself to save the entire universe. But then you have Captain America, all the way from First Avenger to Avengers Endgame. Captain America, Steve Rogers, was the same person through and through. He believed in what was right, he always fought for what was right, and he never strayed away from that. Even in Captain America the Winter Soldier, when S.H.I.E.L.D. is telling him, this is the way the world works, this is how we do things, Captain America doesn't believe in the way they do things because it's not right. He doesn't believe it's right. He continues to fight for what he believes in.
Right.
And I think in rewatching The Winter Soldier and then also having seen Captain America Brave New World within the same week, I think Sam Wilson is a perfect candidate because he falls in that same regard. The Sam Wilson that we see in Captain America the Winter Soldier is the exact same guy that we see now. He has not changed at all from movie to movie, and it doesn't make him less interesting as a person. You know, in the show, he deals with his own, you know, issues. We get to see more of his family, his backstory, where he's from, where he lives. But at the end of the day, he's a guy that has his own morals and beliefs, and he's not willing to sacrifice those beliefs for the greater good because he knows what's the right thing, and he has the responsibility and the ability to do what is right at all times.
He's unwavering.
And I think
right.
He's unwavering, and I think that that's the quality that makes Captain America Captain America. You know, Steve Rogers was that guy, now Sam Wilson is that guy. And so I do see what you mean in that, you know, Spider-Man and Peter and Miles are two very different people, but at the end of the day, when they put the mask on, they are Spider-Man. I think it's the same way with Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson.
And you know what?
They are very similar personality-wise, but they both have the characteristic that makes Captain America Captain America.
Roger that. And you know what? Personally, I'll add that to myself. I'm 100% behind the idea that Sam Wilson, como se dice, defines himself enough. Yeah, absolutely. And that comes from somebody who has watched the show, right? And I watched the movie and you understand it and you really listen and you enjoyed it. Absolutely. And guess what? I feel like if I watched the show and I watched the movie, I'd feel the exact same way because we're fucking clown-to-clown communicators when it comes to cinema. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I could probably agree with you. But one thing I will add is when it comes to audiences, when it comes to, and this is something that I know you'll agree with me as well. You know, so this isn't a retort to your point. Your point is that, and I agree with you. So let me put something separate. This argument has been finished. Let's move to something separate. And that is audiences do not give a shit about the TV show. You know?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's what it is. All right. And unfortunately, this unfair pressure needs to be put on our boy Anthony Mackie, on our boy Sam Wilson with this movie. And he has to redefine himself again. And that adds to the point. I really wish that The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was just a fucking movie. All right?
Honestly, that's a valid criticism because honestly, it should be. The story that they told in the show could have easily been a movie.
Is movie
it should
shit.
have been a movie.
Come on.
And, you know, I totally get that because so many audiences are not willing to, you know, go the extra mile and watch all the Marvel shows, especially now. There's way too many shows. And I even stopped watching all of them.
And, you know, I want to add something to that as well. I'm sorry. With the Miles Morales and the Peter Parker is you constantly see where they're from. You constantly talk with their family members. You constantly see the people that main character loves and admires. And you come to grow and love those people as well. Do you get a lot of that with Sam Wilson? Do you get a lot of family moments? Do you get flashbacks? Do you get the cold?
In the show.
Yeah. In the show? Okay, so you get it in the show.
In the show.
Fuck!
Yeah. So all the Sam Wilson, all the important shit that for him to be Captain America is in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Guys, we need a few movies, bro. What are we doing?
So a friend of mine that I was watching Brave New World with that I sat next to, he said that it feels like Marvel understood a lot of people didn't watch the show, and so there's a lot of lines of dialogue in Brave New World that just feel like exposition.
Oh man.
Because it's just like, okay, so they don't know who this guy is from the show. All right. Because there's a side character in the movie that was in the show.
Which in turn makes it feel more forced for people who haven't seen the show. Yikes. Go ahead.
The thing is, either you make Falcon and Winter Soldier a movie, or you make Captain America Brave New World Season 2.
See, now that...
For Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's different. I would have loved it. See...
That's different.
It's like we're making this is literally just an hour conversation and we're making better compromises here, guys. It's either, I'm serious, billionaire company, all right? Multi-millionaire writers, directors, whatever the fuck, and we're making better compromises. Listen, I don't like being over astute about my opinions, okay? I like to try to be humble. In fact, I demean myself a bit more than I should, right? But You can't tell me that what we're talking about isn't a better alternative, okay? Than just switching platforms mid-franchise, okay? Fuck. Like Loki. Imagine if Loki season 1 and then season 2 was a movie. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't
Don't
work.
do that. Yeah. You make the movie after the TV show is finished, you fucks. Jesus.
Keep the shows and the movies separate. I think Marvel is struggling with that too, because I specifically remember before the Disney Plus shows came out, when WandaVision was coming out, Marvel was like, these are separate. You don't have to watch the movies, or you don't have to watch the shows to understand the movies. Okay, that makes sense, because not everyone is willing to sit down and take hours of their time to watch a TV show.
Which sucks. You guys definitely should. Loki's peak. Go ahead.
It is peak. And then you watch WandaVision, you're like, all right, that was a fun show. And then you go to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. If you did not watch WandaVision, you are confused out of your fucking mind.
Yep.
You're done. You're cooked. You're just like, why does she have kids now? What is why is she evil all of a sudden? What is happening? What do you mean she took an entire town of people hostage?
No way!
What is this? Isn't she a good guy? She helped the Avengers beat
right.
Thanos.
Well,
that doesn't make any sense.
The show definitely thought she was by the end of it for some fucking reason. Yeah.
yeah. Besides that, the transition from WandaVision to Multiverse of Madness is a little jarring.
Can we talk about that for a second? I'm sorry. I remember we were talking about earlier with the fact that they won't take experienced directors, as in someone who's sensible enough to realize that Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch, is a fucking villain. Because you look at the fucking WandaVision TV show, and they frame her as a good guy near the end. It's like, oh, but she released them at the end. No, she held them hostage for however long. These people suffered for a very long time, trying desperately to escape and never could. But now she's just forgiven automatically? Bitch, fuck off. That's what Sam Raimi did. It's like, she's a monster. Let's use that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah. The transition from WandaVision to Multiverse of Madness is weird, but it does work, because when you see...
It still feels perplexing. After watching the show, it still feels perplexing. It's like it didn't happen, but it kind of did. I don't know. It's weird. Go ahead.
It's because... I don't know if we've talked about it before, but the original idea for Multiverse of Madness, they kind of skipped a lot of character arc for Scarlet Witch.
I mean...
to make her the villain.
Right?
And so,
all of a sudden,
apparently,
she's out in the pasture.
Derrickson...
What's going on? Go ahead.
So Scott Derrickson, the director that did Sinister and The Black Phone, famous horror director, he did Doctor Strange 1. And he was going to do Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And... apparently, what the original idea for that movie was going to be is that it was going to be a rated R horror film with the villain being, I believe, Nightmare. And it was going to see Doctor Strange teaming up with Scarlet Witch to take on Nightmare and to retrieve the Darkhold, which is the book that Wanda has in Multiverse of Madness. And then it was going to lead to Wanda taking the Darkhold for herself at the end of the film to set her up as a villain for Avengers. Whatever the next Avengers were going to be, Scarlet Witch was going to be the villain of that. That's what I've read was the original idea. Marvel didn't like the idea, so Scott Derrickson dropped off as director, and they got Sam Raimi. And the writer that was working on the new version for Sam Raimi liked the Scott Derrickson idea, but he said, well, if Wanda's going to be a villain, why save her for Avengers? Why not just do it now? The reason you don't do it now is because you're skipping a lot of character work that needs to happen for her to go from WandaVision to being a fucking Avengers villain. And they just skipped all of that to be like...
It feels like they halfway shot it, too, with her not being the villain. Like that little talk that they had at the field, you know, where she was fucking with her fruits and whatnot. Is like, she didn't seem that disturbed. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, she's a crazy bitch. Like, it happened. It happened near the total whiplash. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What is going on, guys? Jesus. I really need to see what happens behind the scenes. I need to be the fly on the wall, damn it. I really need to know this. It keeps me up at night. Fuck.